On this episode of Locked On Angels, there they are. That's the team that we remember. Lifeless game, lifeless crowd, lifeless team, lifeless management. Not a fun game to watch, but we did watch just for you, and we'll recap that and so much more. It's time to get locked on with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You'll find more life here. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to Jon and I for all this super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. My name's Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
The game put you to sleep, huh? And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
We are the Super Halo Bros, the Frisch Brothers, whatever you'd like to call us. Imagine this is somebody's first episode of Locked On Angels, and that's what they hear is me doing a fake yawn voice. We've been fans of this team for years, hardcore fans, lifelong fans of the Angels. It's our third season here at Locked On Angels as the hosts. We're happy to be here Monday through Friday, talking Angels baseball with you. On today's show, we're talking about Keston Hiura, Mike. Who is he, and why should he matter to you, the everydayer? And we're discussing a hitting philosophy that could help Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak. But first, let's recap that game. I'd say a good 5 hours, right?
Nice Dumb and Dumber reference there. I like that. Now, it was 7-5, but it wasn't that close at all. The Angels made it interesting in the ninth. We'll talk about that in a second. The A's got the scoring started. Brent Rooker, who is probably only A on that team that's worth is it a hill of beans? Is that what the old people would say? And he hit a home run. He hit a home run. It was the first run of the game, and then it was the first hit in the bottom of the fourth inning given up by Soriano. And then a few batters later, Lawrence Butler, who's hitting $187, hits a 3-run home run, and it was a 21-pitch inning for Soriano, gave up 2 home runs. He was only scheduled to throw 65 pitches, so he only went 4 through 62 pitches, 4 earned, 4 Ks. That's how this game got started. And it didn't feel like the previous games, Jon. It didn't feel like there was any sort of momentum, even in the top of the fifth when the Angels eventually got a run on the board.
Yeah, they get on the board. Drury and Adell both singles. Schanuel hits a sacrifice fly to left. That scored Drury. Drury on base a lot last night, by the way, which is great to see. Rengifo followed that with a base hit. Runners at first and third for Taylor Ward. Rengifo steals second. Ward doesn't come through. It's a pop out, Michael. And feels like we're saying that a lot these days. And we'll talk about Ward in the ninth inning as well. And we'll talk about the bottom of the sixth inning where Ward makes a diving play in left field. This is why I'm joking about how this game put me to sleep, because everything felt lifeless from the crowd. I know it's the A's and I know they're going through it. It was like a 5,000 something people crowd. At least that's what was reported. But man, the person keeping track of the balls and strikes on Bally's was falling asleep at the wheel. It was not correct throughout some of the game. The team looked lifeless out there. Everything just felt lifeless. I texted you, and even at one point I said, I mute the commercials between innings. I accidentally muted the game because I thought I was unmuting the commercials. That's how quiet everything felt to me. It was like, I got to unmute the TV. Oh, it's already unmuted. All that to say, bottom of the sixth, Taylor Ward makes a diving play in left, and the call in the field was that he trapped it. He thought he caught it, but they thought he trapped it. He gets up, throws it to first base because he's trying to double off the runner, but it didn't get challenged, Mike. It was kind of a strange situation. In fact, they ran out of time to challenge it, and a lot of people piled on Wash for not challenging that. It was worth a look. The replay looked really close. Now, it is tough to overturn a call on replay, but here's my gripe. Taylor Ward, and maybe it has to do with his hitting performance last night as well. Why aren't you doing the Zach Neto thing? Where you're saying, I got that ball. That's an out.
Here's what he did for those that are on the video side, audio side. You can describe it, John, as I'm doing it. Here's Taylor Ward.
Okay, Mike is staring straight into the camera, lifeless look on his face, nothing going on. Yeah,
he didn't say a word. He didn't do anything. He kind of looked over and looked around and and walked back. I mean, that's all you're going to give us? Like
make it vocal. Be vocal. Tell your dugout, like, hey, you got to look at that.
Even if you didn't catch it. Like, hey, I think I got that ball.
Did they use their challenge the rest of the game? No. Like
there was no competitiveness in that moment at all. And I think that's been the frustrating piece with Taylor Ward is there's no competitiveness in the field. And it just feels like he's like, well, okay. I'm going to go. Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna play peekaboo with Jose Altuve and let Maldonado tag me out at first base. I still can't get over that. But listen, it was a big call because the A's got a 2-run double out of it. Now, if they had challenged, it could have been a much different story. It added another run on a single right after that, made it 7-1.
Yeah.
By the bottom of the 6th. So the Angels all the way down to 7-1. It felt like, remember when the A's were good, Mike? Like just like 3 years ago, and we were really bad. Just like now, it was one of those games where the A's just pile on, and that's what happened here. Take us to the top of the 7th.
Yeah, Drury got on base a few times. He walked at the top of the inning, and then Moniak hits a double. And second and third with nobody outs, another chance to score. Adell strikes out. His swing looks like he's swinging a huge log cabin. I mean, it feels like it's taking 45 minutes to get through the zone. It's just this long swing again. So he strikes out, but luckily Nolan Schanuel was in the lineup and playing last night. Dude had a sac fly, and then the dude had a 2-run single in this inning, made it 7-3 at that time. And then Rengifo then grounded into a double play. So they didn't do too much in that inning after that. Then top of the 9th, the Angels made it interesting. They seem to always come back in the 9th, don't they, Johnny?
Yeah, Schanuel added to his RBI total with a double that scored Drury. Rengifo followed that up with an RBI single, made it a 2-run game at this point. Taylor Ward is the tying run at the plate, struck out on 4 pitches, kept turning away from the slider from Mason Miller.
Like not just turning away, like
I don't want to get hit in the face again.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mike, is it my imagination or are MLB pitchers doing this? Like, is this a thing that's happening to Taylor Ward?
Oh, absolutely. They're throwing in, and those 2 pitches from Mason Miller were hot and ready. I mean, they came in, but they were strikes. They weren't out of the zone.
And they were sliders, Mike.
Yes.
They started out inside the zone and they ended up in the zone.
And he's
bailing. I should say inside to Taylor Ward.
Yeah. Ward is bailing. It got the inside corner. He's bailing. Both those pitches, he's bailing. And I've noticed him doing that a lot this year. It's I'm watching, turning my back and backing out. I'm falling backwards. I mean, just not confident. And I know he just got hit. I have a lot of empathy for him. I know he just got hit recently. But then the pitch that struck him out was way out of the zone in the opposite end of the batter's box where the left-handed batter stands, swings at that. Looked like the dude from the Detroit Tigers who swings at everything, right? Like this second baseman from the Tigers, like just looked terrible swinging at that pitch. And he's the RBI leader. You need him to make contact in that moment. And it was not a competitive at bat, and he was not competitive in the outfield last night. He was just he just existed in the lineup last night. Taylor Ward did.
What do you make of Wash not challenging? I know we piled on Taylor Ward for not making it obvious, but don't you think if you're the manager in that situation, you got to do something?
I think so. I mean, they didn't show that I saw on the TV side him, holding his hand up and then looking back to see if they were actually looking at the replay. I didn't see any of that stuff. And typically that goes pretty quick, like grabbing the phone and then there's a thumbs up or there's a thumbs down, right? And I didn't see any of that. And it just kind of sat there. And what was also interesting is that Gooby recognized, I don't think he actually caught that. Maybe he trapped it. And when he threw it to first, he was like, what is he doing? He could have gotten the force out at second.
Yeah.
And then they had a conversation about maybe he thought he caught it, but he didn't act like he thought he caught it. And that's the thing in baseball. There is kind of an award that goes to a benefit that goes to the players that, even if it didn't happen, they pretend it happened. Right?
You got to sell it, just like wrestling. You got to sell it.
Yes, it's all about selling. And if you don't get hit, but it looks like you got hit, you act like you got hit, right? If it's not ball 4, but you think it's ball 4 or you want it to be ball 4, you throw the bat away and you walk. And the same thing in the outfield. If you're diving for something like that, which Taylor Ward got off of his feet. He doesn't normally do that. You're diving for something like that.
Looked like a great play.
Like that. Yeah, absolutely. It was a great play. He stopped it, but then he thought he caught it. I'm assuming because you don't throw to first to try to double off the runner if you thought you trapped it.
Yeah, I think he definitely thought he caught it. It's just mind-boggling that nobody else thought he did, or he didn't signal to the dugout that they should review it. Look, I know you might need your replay later on in the game, or your review, I should say, but that's the perfect time because it was a run-scoring play, and it would have halted things, and it would have changed the trajectory of the game from that point. It wouldn't have been 7 runs scored, right? So all of that to say, I think it was a missed opportunity, a missed chance for the Angels to manage a little bit better on the terms of Ron Washington, for Taylor Ward to say something. Again, I go back to you watch Zach Neto, and when he thinks that he got the out at second,
right,
making a play, and they call him safe, immediately he goes, no, and he'll point to the dugout. That's what was missing here from Taylor Ward.
And here's what we've seen the last 7 games, not counting last night, is it felt like the energy moved into the category of a Zach Neto and a Logan O'Hoppe. It felt like all of the leadership started to move in their direction. I get that they're not going to rip off 6 in a row all of the time, especially this team. But what I was really excited about was that all of the bored, meaningless, no fundamental baseball was starting to shift over to the young guys. They were taking the lead. Even Taylor Ward has said, O'Hoppe's our guy. Last night felt like it went back into the Joe Adell and Taylor Ward category, right? It went back into the Billy Epler years of draft picks again, instead of the Perry Manassian years of draft picks. And that's why I think it was pretty disappointing, because it just didn't feel like they were competitive with the A's, who they swept, at all.
Yeah, making Mitch Spence, who I think they rattled off 6 earnings against him last week and made him look like an ace out there. So it just felt lifeless. Everything felt lifeless. I was lifeless. It was just a long day, you know? Yeah. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are playing the A's again, 6:40 Pacific time in Oakland. Davis Daniel. Now, that won't be lifeless. I'll be locked in for every pitch. Let's go, Davis Daniel. He's starting this one. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, who is Keston Hiura, and how many times will Mike mispronounce his name? We're going to get into that.
Shut up, I hate you.
We're going to get into all of that in just a minute.
Johnny, in real life, my real job allows me to have a lot of flexibility in July, which I really appreciate. And so we've talked about like going somewhere, traveling somewhere, but you know me, I don't leave like the outskirts of my neighborhood too much, right? And so Tiff and I, my wife and I have been talking a lot about where we could travel, but we don't want to do that on our own. So this is why I love our new everydayers at Locked On Angels. Booking.com. They are so good at helping plan out adventures, because we can't always drive down to see you. And when we drive down to see you, you plan the day for us. I appreciate that, because if you didn't, we'd literally sit in your apartment and do nothing. And so you're like our Booking.com in Pasadena, but Booking.com for all of our travels is so fantastic, with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, so much more. We get to find the perfect stay using Booking.com. And if you're traveling this summer and your travel is focused on maybe following the Angels wherever they go, you don't want to go to Oakland, but anywhere around that place would be great. Use Booking.com. They've got you covered. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this Major League Baseball season. So take the guesswork out of travel. Flex your booking power with our new everydayers, Booking.com. Book today on the site or using the app, Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. And if you're planning on going to the game, you got to use our friends at Game Time. They're the authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which means that you can get your tickets a whole lot easier and a whole lot faster.
I haven't been to a game this season, and it's throwback weekend coming up. And you guys know I love my throwback Angels hat. So I think I got to get out to the stadium that weekend. I'm going to use Game Time to do it.
Do it right now. You do it right now. I'll talk about them. What's great about Game Time is they have so many different options and so many tickets that have value. You can check out their app and just roll through it. You'll be surprised at how much you'll save. In fact, I was talking to somebody that listens to Locked On Angels, and they said the other day, we weren't even talking about the podcast. They said the other day, I went to the game, used the Game Time app, and I was like, you did? And they said, yeah, I even used the promo code Locked On MLB and got $20 off my first purchase. So you can too. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today and use that promo code Locked On MLB. $20 off your first purchase. John, did you put the promo?
I'm already done. I got my tickets.
You did that so fast. I'm talking way too long. That's Game Time, and use our promo code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, just like John did. Lowest prices guaranteed.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, if you need a new 24/7 sports fix, you don't want to do cable, you don't want to do ESPN, Fox Sports, all that stuff, you got to check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed just for you to bring you the biggest stories across the sports world. Brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news from the local experts of Locked On, plus our national hosts as well. So check it out, YouTube, 24/7. It's also on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And speaking of your team every day, the Angels are back at it tonight, 6:40 Pacific time in Oakland. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Johnny, there's a player in AAA that's causing a big stir. It's Keston Hiura, and I'm just kidding. It's
well done.
I had to mispronounce it, right? Keston Hiura is the guy that's causing a lot of stir in the minor leagues, because in his last 18 games, including last night, Johnny, and as of this recording, he hasn't hit any more home runs, but he hit one last night. He has 12 home runs in his last 18 games. In fact, He was named the PCL Player of the Week last week. Here's his slash line: 435 batting average, 536 on base, a 1.217 slugging percentage, a 292 weighted runs created plus. He had 6 home runs, 8 runs, and 11 RBIs. So, Johnny, who the heck is this guy?
Yeah, he was drafted number 9 in 2017 by the Brewers out of UC Irvine. Hey, that's my wife's alumni. That's cool. He reached the majors in 2019. Mike, he had a great year that year. 303 batting average, 368 on base, 570 slugging with a 938 OPS, and an OPS plus of 138 in 84 games. Remember, OPS plus 100 is league average. That made Keston Hiura 38% better than the rest of the league. It looked like Hiura was going to be a breakout player for the Brewers, but 3 consecutive years of less than 80 games kind of halted him. He had a slash line of 238, 318 on base, 453 slugging, 771 OPS. I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's not too bad. But in Angel world, that's not too bad.
Right.
Hiura struggled to find a spot on the Brewers roster. Obviously, they have made do without him, and they're doing pretty well right now, but was something of a, hey, breakout player, and then that all kind of dwindled with the injuries to Hiura.
Yeah, he bounced around since his time with the Brewers. And really, Johnny, the last 2 years, he's thrived in the minor leagues. He did elect free agency in October of 2023. He signed a minor league contract with the Tigers and was invited to spring training. They released him on June 3rd. And then June 11th, he signed with the Halos, and he's playing for the Salt Lake City Bees. So with all of this minor league talk, him playing really well in the minor leagues this year, and if you take a look at his stats, last year played really well as well. He's actually had 2 really good back-to-back years. A lot of these home runs in bunches, it's not what he did last year. However, he's on pace to put up the same amount of home runs and has a really similar slash line. So, Johnny, the question then is, should the Angels use Hiura now, later? How should they use this player moving forward?
I think it's going to be wise, and this is actually suggested by Locked On Everydayer Nate on Twitter, that the Angels wait until after the trade deadline to see who's here and who's not, Mike. And that's the perfect time to bring up Keston Hiura to see what he can do, see where you can play him, see if he can offset some of the deficiencies around the lineup. Because if you find a diamond in the rough, and I know that we've gone through this so many times with so many different players. Oh, it's a diamond in the rough here, diamond in the rough here. Maybe we can get something out of him. I totally understand how repetitive and annoying that can be as an Angel fan. But you got to look at these numbers. I totally understand. It's AAA. It's Salt Lake. The numbers get inflated. But the consistency, I think, is the part that you want to pay attention to there, where he's hitting night after night, consecutive home run after home run after home run. And that's the thing, Mike, is things had just not translated for him. And so to see him come up to the majors and get another chance with the Angels, why not? Because it'll be August. The deadline will have come and gone. Some of the players that are here now will probably and hopefully not be here after the deadline. So I think you hang on to Hiura. I think you don't risk any roster moves with anybody to bring him on to make room for him. I think that you wait until after the deadline when people are gone, give him a shot and see what happens. What's your opinion on Hiura?
That's the perfect time to bring him up. And this is the perfect team to have him perform on, because they get a lot of at-bats at the end of the year. And if he can't perform, then you get rid of him at the end of the year. You're not obligated to keep him. And that's what the Angels can do. They can kind of see where he's at. He's only 27 years old, John. He's not old. And so you still have some good prime years left. And he was dealing with a lot of injuries with the Brewers. It wasn't that he got figured out. It was a lot of injuries that they were wrestling through. And that can slow anybody down, right? And so that's the thing with Hiura that could potentially give him potential with the Angels as he comes up to the major leagues. He could be somebody that maybe figures it out. Maybe it's like Cole Calhoun when they brought him up. There really wasn't any sort of narrative about Cole Calhoun when they brought him up. They're like, hey, we need somebody in right field. Let's bring him up, see what he can do. Left-handed bat, plays great defense. Suddenly, this guy's hitting bombs. And in a short amount of time, Cole Calhoun was like, I'm owning right field. And so then the next season, it wasn't a surprise to see that they named him the starter. And so perhaps with Hiura's age and with his experience, he could be somebody that could man second base or maybe third base next year. He could be somebody that could be in the infield for the Halos. So I think that this is a low risk, high reward move up after the trade deadline for the Angels.
Yeah, when you're 27 years old, you're entering those prime baseball years too. So if he's healthy and entering his prime, why not give him a chance? Again, I say, don't make that move right now. Just let him continue to mash. Let him continue to build confidence so that when the time comes for him to come up to the majors, he's like, I got this. Get ready, because Keston Hiura is coming to town and he's going to tear it up for the Angels. That'll be fun to watch after the trade deadline.
And with Keston Hiura hitting all of these home runs, it reminded me that everydayers, you need to download Prize Picks, because Prize Picks allows you to flex your baseball knowledge. I know that nerds like us may be very impressive as you listen. You're like, man, Mike and Jon just know so many things. Or you might actually think to yourself, I know much more than they do, which is probably true. And if you do, download Prize Picks, because it's a great app to flex that baseball knowledge, and you could win some money. You could win 100 times your money right now with Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Here's how it works. There's a list of players, and you have to select between 2 and 6 of those players, and then pick if they're going to perform more on the stat or less on the stat. And the stat is typically like a half stat. So if it says that they're going to hit a home run, it would be a 0.5. So are they going to hit one home run, or are they not going to hit a home run? And you get to decide. Now, if it's Keston Hiura and he's on that app, you probably want to say he's going to hit a home run, because the dude has been really great. So you would pick more on that one. Really easy to use. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. And so if you're waiting for a game to start, or maybe you forgot, you can quickly go in and select it. It's so much fun to use. And when you download right now, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and Prize Picks, because you put that promo code in, your friends at Locked On Angels hooked you up, and so did Prize Picks. You're going to get a first deposit match of up to $100. So download Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Mike, George Brett is not a fan of the Los Angeles Angels. Wait, Oh no, I read that wrong. Launch angles. My bad. Not Los Angeles, but launch angles. Okay,
launch angles.
Yes, launch angles. George Brett, Mike, is not a fan of launch angles. John Morosi tweeted an interesting quote from George Brett recently. Brett was asked about launch angle and the whole philosophy around that and how every hitter seems to have prioritized that. Here's what he had to say. I get in arguments all the time with hitting coaches and players today. My bat was coming through the zone on the same plane as the ball. That's why I didn't strike out. Nowadays, players strike out all the time because their bat is in and out of the zone on the same plane as the ball for a short period of time. I will go to my grave vowing that my theory is better than they're teaching right now. Now he has an argument, Mike, because, he just hit 3,154 hits across his career. So I think he knows what he's talking about here.
Right.
But how would this philosophy help somebody like maybe a Joe Adell, a Mickey Moniak? Do you think it would help them? What do you say?
I think like any sort of philosophy needs to be brought to Joe Adell because he was doing great.
Anything right now.
He was doing great. And then he's kind of gone back to his old habits. And then Mickey is hot and then he's not. And you can see him going back to his old habits as well. Swinging at pitches above the zone, swinging it at ball one and popping it straight up. I would say with George Brett specifically, it's a whole lot easier. Well, let me rephrase it. Playing baseball like he did was great. And he did it with ease. Being a professional Major League Baseball hitting coach, you have to pass along philosophy, but you're not batting for the batter, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is going to sound strange. It's easier to be a player than it is a coach, probably in this context, because I like his philosophy. The people that you're coaching just have to buy in and adopt it. And I think that's why you're seeing somebody like a Joe Adell and a Mickey Moniak struggle, because their baseball IQ is still growing and their baseball maturity is still developing. And so they're taking things and applying it, but then they're forgetting it. Zach Netto's talked about that. Like, the leg kick, I wasn't supposed to do that, but it just out of habit, this is what I'm doing. I agree though. I'm a huge fan of the single, double, triple line drive, because then I think that you end up hitting the ball over the fence. And there's nothing worse than you're down by 4 runs, but you hit a 3-run home run rally killer, right? Like there's nothing worse than that. Sometimes you just need that crazy hitting that the Angels had in 2002, where it's a base hit and then it's a double and then it's a single and then it's another double.
Frenetic. We call it frenetic.
You need that type of hitting. And so I think that George Brett has a great approach here, a great philosophy. Johnny, I think it could really help some of our young guys. They just have to adopt it. What do you think?
Well, you're right in the sense that when it comes to coaching and being a batting coach or even a pitching coach, this is why you don't see John Lackey as a pitching coach in the Angels organization or Jared Weaver as a pitching coach in the Angels organization. Now, they could very well do it. I'm sure that they would do a good job, but it's all about teaching guys how to do things. I have often said that there are 1, maybe 2 successful pitching coaches around the league, as in guys who had major league success. I'm trying to remember who was with us, and then he went to the Giants, and then he was Andrew. I wish I could remember his name, but he was part of our team as a bullpen coach. One of the few.
Andrew Bailey.
Thank you. One of the few pitching coaches in the league who had Major League Baseball success. And there's a reason for that. A lot of these guys, they had success as minor leaguers. Maybe they came up for a cup of coffee. Maybe they were a reliever. Barry Enright, perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of great success in the majors, but somebody who can teach the game well, teach guys how to manage things well. It's one thing to do it well. It's another thing to teach. And what's that phrase? It's those who can't do, teach. Yes. that's the phrase.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it comes down to here. Now, this is piggybacking off this Joe Adell, Mickey Moniak conversation, Mike. I have 2 bones to pick with this situation. I have seen the narrative a lot about Joe Adell, Mickey Moniak. They need to be off this team. They need to be DFA'd. Here are the bones that I need to pick. Number 1, the narrative out there is, they need to send them down or do this or do that. Let's just get this out of the way. They can't be set down.
Yeah.
They're out of options. If they are DFA'd which is the only choice that the Angels have, those two will get scooped up, especially with the age, the years of control. So that's not going to happen. Number 2 is, yes, Joe Adell is struggling. Mickey Moniak is streaky, which we've seen. Joe Adell had pretty good success in that first month because he was doing a short, compact swing, and he's gotten away from that.
Yep.
But you know what's great is players are coachable and they can be corrected. There's nothing about Joe Adell that says, hey, dude, you got to be more compact in your swing. There's nothing stopping him from doing that. And the second part two of my two-parter is, what would be the point of letting these guys go? Because it's not as if the Angels are going to the playoffs.
Right.
Not going to the World Series. This is the year. And we have been spouting this since before the season started. This is the year to let these guys go through the highs and the lows that happen to every single player who's ever played a game, a season, a career of Major League Baseball. These are the highs and lows. So where else are these guys going to figure it out but at the MLB level? And why not have Washington and Barry Enright help these guys out? Even extends to the pitching, right?
Right.
There's no reason to DFA, get rid of these guys. You got to get because somebody's going to pick them up and they're going to be great for them because somebody's going to solve the issue. Somebody's going to get Joe Adell back to his compact swing. It's not as if the Angels are going anywhere this season.
Right.
So I think let's just be patient with these two guys. And I've said this a million times. Let's reassess at the end of the season. Give Joe Adell 162 games. I know he won't get into 162 games. Give him a full season of Major League Baseball, and then we can all make our judgment calls at the end of the season. But I got to say, getting rid of these guys for the sake of, well, they're no good, they suck, they keep doing this, they keep doing that, that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't help these guys. And if you're tired of them, well, you must get tired of that intern who's learning on the job as well. But I don't think you're firing them. I think you're recognizing that they're going to make mistakes. You're recognizing that they're learning on the job. And you know what the problem is at the end of the day? It's the Angels' development, because these guys have to learn on the job at the major league level. And that's why they're in the situation that they're in. That's why they're not competing for the playoffs. So what better place, what better time? I'm going to do Rage Against the Machine right there. What better place, what better time than right now for these guys to figure it out? We're not going anywhere. So what's the rush in trying to cast these guys off to another team? That's my 2 cents. That's what I have to say on the matter.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the A's in Oakland, 6:40 Pacific time. Catch every picture of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
You know, my little quip about the drums at the Coliseum came back to bite me, because that's what was missing. The guys,
I didn't hear a thing.
They're all gone, Mike. Yeah, you didn't hear anything in that game.
I loved it.
So that's why it felt so lifeless. Oh yeah, you enjoyed that. Well, yeah. I thought my TV was muted when it wasn't. Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Get in the comment section. Best way to connect with us is right there. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show, the 4th of July?
We always hear about how this team has fight, and there's always arguments on like, well, who cares? And what does that mean? Well, John and I have a definition for you. There's a stat that will help you to go, okay, that does seem like they have some fight. And we'll share that stat with you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us maybe while you're getting ready for the festivities. You can put us on in the background and say, hey, these are my pals, Mike and Jon from Locked On Angels. You should check them out. We'd love that. All right, friends. Thanks for being here. Until then, my name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
All right, we'll see you back here on the 4th on Thursday.
I wonder what machine Rage Against the Machine was mad at.